Yo, and welcome to the 19th episode of Lake of Rage, a Pokemon trading card game podcast. I am your one and only permanent host, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp. And I'm joined today by two very special temporary guest hosts. Joining us for the fourth time?
I think fifth.
Fifth
Maybe
time
sixth.
is
Something like that.
six. Jeez, that's too many.
Yeah.
Is
It's not as many as Boo.
well, no, but I like Boo. Is is Nikhil, aka the Gyroscope Eevee.
How you guys? How you doing?
And joining us for the first time is, I was informed, half of Omnipoke. I always forget that because Jack streams at a time when I'm like sleeping. And so I never see him do stuff. But half of Omnipoke, Joe, aka, I guess, Omnipoke.
Thanks for having me on.
So today we are going to talk about cubing a little bit, an alternate format that I think is underrated by a lot of people. We'll talk about why. And some of you might, you hear the word cube and you automatically have fond memories, thoughts, opinions, whatever. Some of you, you've never heard that word. Stick with us. I promise you, it is a very fun alternate format. We're talking about that today. But first, before we get there, we are going to, of course, get to know our newest temporary guest hosts with some of those rapid strike questions. Then we'll talk about cubing, and then we'll get into questions from Twitch chat. As always, we are live on twitch.tv/mellow_Magikarp. Nikhil, how have you been this past week?
It's been kind of crazy. This is our 6th week of summer camp. So I'm pretty busy. However, with Pokemon, I've been playing standard IRL a lot more, and I've had a ton of fun doing that. And then KDR had some exciting news. I think this is the first place that we've said anything about it. I don't know if anyone said it in the Zools chat yesterday, but this weekend we signed the 14th member of the KDR family. I don't think he's in chat. He's probably asleep. But Sir Pandage of Twitch chat has joined the KDR squad. An awesome member of the Twitch community and the Pokemon community as a whole. So we are very happy to have Pandage join the squad. And yeah. That's I think the first time we've said anything about it.
That is, maybe. I believe, yeah, because there was no official tweet or anything about. But shout out to Pandage. Anyone who has ever been in a Twitch stream knows Pandage. Anyone who hasn't is probably very confused right now. But go watch some Twitch streams. You will see Pandage around a lot. Joe, how's your week been?
It's been good. The UK has finally sort of released their lockdown restrictions, which is cool, but also quite scary because figures are going back up. But anyway, I got to see some friends over the weekend, which was great. We actually played Cube, so that's actually quite timely. And then we got back to playing lots of Secret Hitler and Werewolf and did all that stuff. And it's people we haven't seen for a year and a half, 2 years. So it was really awesome, actually. Yeah,
that's really exciting. I think I feel like every one of my friends that I saw after lockdown, I kind of took for granted that time frame. Because when you say a year and a half, it's yeah, I guess that is technically true. It just felt like, yeah, I just saw you last week, even though it was not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Discord with the guys a lot, so it's like we've been in contact the entire time, but it's just different in person, you know?
Oh, for sure. And I'm still on summer break, so I've been doing nothing. It is the absolute dream. I did play in a Sword and Shield On tournament with Metagross. Never. Card sucks, man. It's so bad.
Not even gonna shout out the fact it was our event.
I played in the Carpe D's Rats, the last one, correct, to get into the Invitational. And
not gonna say anything.
The last major, maybe not the last major. I don't know.
Maybe not. I haven't finished talking to Boo.
For anyone wondering, I went 0-3 drop. So I did not make the Invitational. Like I said, Metagross is not...
Maybe we'll put you in there.
See,
maybe we'll just stick you in there.
The killer with Metagross is they already want to boss your Bronzong. And if they boss your Bronzong, it also resets your Metagross. So it's actually just completely destroys your entire strategy. It's so bad. Okay, don't play Metagross. I'm still salty about that tournament. I don't know how I got baited into doing that. There were perfectly fine, good decks I could have played. You don't even KO Ice Rider. You have weakness. Oh my gosh, the card sucks, man. So let's go ahead and get to know Joe a little better with some of these rapid strike questions. So we're going to ask you as many questions you can answer in 60 seconds. Of course, no explanation, just straight off the top of your head. Does that sound okay?
All good.
Awesome. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Question number 1. What is your go-to late night snack?
Crisps.
If you were a gym leader, what type would you specialize in?
Water.
Winter or summer?
Winter.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Favorite Pokemon?
Empoleon.
Would you rather lose in the finals of Worlds or cast the finals of Worlds?
Cast.
Cooking or cleaning?
Cooking.
Favorite deck you've ever played?
Vespiquen Yveltal Bats.
If you're making tea, do you put the milk in first or last?
Last.
Favorite region in a Pokemon game?
Johto.
Rate your karaoke skills on a score of 1 to Beyonce.
2.
Would you rather wake up early or stay up late?
Stay up late.
Do you prefer fish or chips?
Chips.
If you played any sport professionally, which one would it be?
Football.
If you ever got arrested, what would it be for?
Raging at a Pokemon tournament.
And that is time. So you made it through 15 of those questions. I have to ask.
Yeah, I didn't want to lie when I said the region. I like Kalos came to my mind, but I was like, I don't like Kalos.
What's not to like about Kalos?
All of it.
I mean, it's just not great. Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. What do you like about Johto?
I really like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, the games, and the Johto region is just like good. I think you get a lot of good areas. I like the place where you catch Ho-Oh. I like the Burn Tower, like history behind that. I think it's got like a good mixture of lore and just like you get surf pretty early in the game, so you get to like travel quite nicely. I think it's like good flow to the region.
See, I feel like the flow to the region is non-existent. That's always been my complaint with.
But that's the thing. You get to choose, like, if you want to go, like, based on your team, right? You can go, like, left, right, up, down. Do it. Like, you can end up going to explore, like, tons of places before doing, like, any of the gyms. And then you can just, like, bash them out one by one.
See, but I feel like that's the worst part because everything's, like, the scaling is just so bad, which sucks.
Yeah, maybe.
I like, Goldenrod might be my favorite town, like, in any Pokemon game. Like, if I could live anywhere, Goldenrod might be that number 1 choice. But
I
like,
have a huge gripe with that game.
Yeah.
I have huge gripes with Gen 2. Like, a lot.
Why?
My big 3 are, I felt like the gyms were very basic and lazy. A lot of gym leaders didn't have fully evolved Pokemon very late. There's not enough cool new Pokemon to use. A lot of them are like kind of garbage. And then
what?
They were like, but like half the Pokemon are things like Ariados, which suck, Fortress, which sucks. Like a lot
Fortress
of Gen 2
is
Pokemon
so cool.
are really bad. Or they're evolutions of Gen 1 Pokemon like Steelix and Crobat, or the
cool.
Pokemon you can't get like Tyranitar for ages. You can't get Houndoom for ages in the games.
But like, bro, Crobat's cool. Crobat made Zubat not suck.
But Crobat was just but Crobat doesn't like count as a whole new evolution line. Like you already know Zubat, you already know Golbat. It's just like improving one Pokemon. Like they could have. Why didn't they just release a whole line for that then? I don't know. That's my opinion.
See, next you're gonna tell me you don't like Glade either, because Gardevoir.
Oh, Glade's sick. No, Glade's sick. Glade's sick.
Yeah, see, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It just got better. Bellossom.
Yeah,
Bellossom's cool.
But like the stupid part is like they gave us Pokemon like Sneasel, Pichu, Igglybuff, Magby, stuff that needs to evolve later. But like things like Sneasel, Gligar, they don't evolve for 2 generations. They're complete garbage for 2 like generations. Same thing with Mischievous, the only ghost type.
Yeah, they were saved. Sinnoh saved them.
Sinnoh saved so many Pokemon.
You're also missing the very important. The Lake of Rage existed there. That was the
that was cool.
Iconic.
I'll give you that.
That was the real answer.
Cool.
Yep.
I'll give you that.
We all love that shiny Gyarados. I was so hyped. That's because Gyarados was always my favorite Pokemon, and it was like, this is so cool. It's red. I love it.
It's free.
Yes, I didn't have to, because every time playing Red and Blue or anything, person selling me the Magikarp, heck yeah, give me that thing. And I'm going to grind it up and have a Gyarados before Misty. So many hours. Worth it, though. So let's go ahead and jump into our main topic, which is what is a cube? So for anyone listening currently who may not be aware, and just give you a quick rundown of like, why should you care about what cubing is? Now, of course, statistically, if you've made it this far in, you're going to finish the whole thing. That's usually how it works. But on the off chance, you're kind of like, cube, would I ever play a cube? Like, what is it? Why is it? I played cubing for the first time once the competitive season like starts to run down. You have your Worlds invite and you're like, now what? And I've really enjoyed it every single time. But I am not the expert here. I've done it like 6 or 7 times versus I don't know how many Nikhil and Joe have done. So could you kind of explain for anyone listening who isn't already aware, what is a Pokemon cube?
I'll let Joe go first because he's got some banging content on this.
Yeah, feel free to plug all of your content on this. I've watched those videos.
Yeah, I've done a couple. They're actually super out of date, to be honest, and I'm going to do a whole guide all over again. But a cube is basically just a set number of cards that someone has selected for us to make dummy packs out of. And then you go round in a circle, usually, taking a card, passing it along, and constructing a deck as you go. So the cube builder's job is to decide basically what cards go in, based on what power level they want, what strategies they want to have, enabled in the cube, what sort of cards you want to have strong. They decide how the flow of the game is going to go, whether it's big one-hit KOs back and forth, whether they've got gust, whether or not, there's healing. All these sorts of things are completely down to the builder's choice for the cube. And then it's down to the players to try and then construct the best available decks that they can from the cards they see and what they know about the cube itself. So it's one of those things where once you've drafted a cube once, you then sort of gain some knowledge about it, and potentially a metagame can evolve around a single cube. And it's one of these things that can be constantly evolving as well, because new cards come out. Even if there are not new sets coming out, the person who's built the cube can change up ratios within the cube, or just cards in general, whether or not they want to balance the cube or just try out different things. So it's one of these things that's like constantly changing, but typically it's just a way to draft and have fun decks, essentially, is like the long and short of it.
Yeah, that was the most perfect explanation possible. Like, that hit everything I was gonna say. Like exactly what Joe said. It's super cool. It's a way of drafting cards, but you determine what cards go into it. As he said, you can have 2 prizes in there, you can have 3 prizes in there, you can have none of that, you can have basics only, you can have like different mechanics like plasma or or SPs. Like there's so many avenues you can combine. You can take new cards and combine them with like base set cards. It's super fun, and there's like a ton of mechanics you can like mess around with. It's by far my favorite way to play Pokemon.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do is you get the card pool of Unlimited without the toxicity of the Unlimited format, which, shout out to anyone who plays Unlimited. I think that is an unplayable format. Those cards should not exist together. But yeah, Cube is very cool because you can play Bill and you can have, I can't even think of a good new card, Team Up Gengar in the same deck. So let's talk a little bit about not what is cubing. We already mentioned a little bit what it is, but like why? Why, Nikhil? You said it's your favorite. Joe, you've put out a ton of content on it. I've watched you.
It's also my favorite.
Okay, it is your favorite too. Yeah. Why? Why do you prefer it over retro formats, current format? And I don't know what other alternate formats exist, but I know they exist. Why do you prefer cubing over this?
I guess pre-release would be like the 4th alternative format, but I mean, for me personally, cubing is such a unique way to explore Pokemon, because for me at least, I just started like having my own IRL cube just about last November. I've gotten to use it a couple times, and it teaches you so much about format design. Like I used to have like Guzma and Gust heavy format with a bunch of 2 prizes that were just like stupid broken. And the cube was just like, it felt so fast. And then I learned that you can slow down a cube by removing like the super aggressive gust outs, by removing things like VS Seeker, by removing 2 prizers. Like that stuff you can start doing. And I also love the puzzle of being able to like put random cards together. Like last time I played a friend of mine's cube, I played Scizor Bronzong with Crobat Line. The Crobat pings damage, Scizor and Bronzong like work together really well. Like that was a blast. I've played Empoleon, Porygon Z. It just lets you explore so many avenues of Pokemon and like all the challenges of deck building, format design, deck management, stuff like that. And I think it's the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, I think from a building perspective, the more you sort of play your cube, you can basically curate the cube to exactly how you enjoy Pokemon the most. You can make it exactly what you want it to be, and then you get other people to experience your way of how you like Pokemon, which I think is really awesome. And then when you're playing other people's cubes, it's basically a reflection on how they like to play Pokemon, whether it's a favorite era, maybe they started, in Diamond and Pearl, or they started in the EX series, and it's fully focused on those sorts of cards and that sort of power level. It can be a great throwback. It can be great to learn the history of Pokemon cards as well, because it can help you in standard. It can help you in, when new cards coming out. It helps you evaluate cards, and I think that's something that, as like a player of a draft, it hits on so many skills, not just like shuffling up and playing a game of standard. You're first of all valuing all sorts of cards against each other throughout a drafting process. You're trying to like memorize what can come back round in packs, what you think can be passed around a table. There's so many skills within like the draft itself. It's already like a really dense topic. And then you're subtracting the cards that you actually drafted from, making it a viable 60 card deck as much as you can. And then you're actually doing the battling stage. So it's like so many things work towards this like one weird stupid deck that shouldn't ever like beat a real deck that we've ever made. But like you're like so dedicated to stupid things like coin flips on like paralysis on like a random 40 hit point basic, because this is like the most important thing right now for you to just like dunk on friends, really. So it makes you enjoy Pokemon in a really strange way. Like I've lost to cards like Big Malasada and just like been in hysterical laughter because of it, like because you just like had the Big Malasada on the right turn. It's like that's the perfect out for the situation sort of thing. So it's unique every single time, even within your own cube. But and it's basically how you want Pokemon to be, which is just amazing.
And as someone who's never built a cube but only done it, one of the reasons I love it so much is the drafting aspect. We can talk a little more about draft. Well, we should, because I have questions about drafting. But I grew up loving sports, all that kind of stuff, watching the NBA draft and the NFL draft, where every year was like, oh, who's going to pick what and all that stuff. And it feels like going through and picking your cards feels like the same thing of trying to strategize of like, I'm not just going to pick the best card here. How does it fit in with everything I want? And I really enjoy that. The problem is I usually pick the best card and then it just ends up, I have no deck at the end. I just have cards. But it's very fun to actually kind of go through, and it has that same feeling of, like I said, for anyone else who likes a sport that has a draft in it, it has that same vibe and that same feeling of like thinking around the table of like, okay, I've noticed these are starting to go, shortly after me. So someone must be taking this specific evolution line, or someone's going for this type of strategy. And so like, oh, maybe I need to prioritize control cards so I don't have to play against it. Or, one of the cubes I've gone, they have a full Night March line in there, and it's, you pay your Night March tax of like, these things are going, someone's doing it. I've got to take these Night Marchers so someone else doesn't do it. And it's like, it's just a whole fun little strategy that is nothing like currently in Pokemon. The playing feels like playing Pokemon outside of the occasional, you do get a Big Malasada pulled on you or something similar like that. But the actual drafting process for me is just so much fun because nothing like it at all. It's like building a pre-release deck on steroids.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. Keep going.
You brought up drafting and it like made me think. I've played cubes with 3 different styles of drafting. I've played a cube where this was the most insane cube I've ever played. I wanted to actually see what Joe thought of it. Basically, there's a list of Pokemon. It goes like anywhere from Typhlosion to Blissey to Magnezone. They're like all stage 1s or stage 2s. At the beginning of the draft, the cube owner basically assigns everyone a number and just rolls a dice and says, all right, you pick the first lines. Like you say like Charizard. And you get all these different Charizard, Charmeleons, and Charmanders. And then after everyone's picked their lines, he's like, all right, you picked a fire Pokemon, here's all the fire type support cards. And you pick like 6 of them at random. right? So then you get like the fiery torch and the blacksmith, stuff like that. And then you draft out like basics and then supporters and like stuff like that. And it's the wildest draft I've ever done because it only takes like 30 minutes because if you want to you just do it really fast with experienced cubers. I've played cubes where like everything is separated, so you draft the final evolution lines and then you get the evolution pieces after. I've played cubes where everything is shuffled together. And because of this awesome website, which I have to shout out, Cube Koga, I love this thing so much. I'm probably spending too much time just looking at people's cubes on there. Cube Koga has a way to digitalize a cube so someone can pull up your list while drafting. Me and my friends, basically, before we do each other's cubes, we'll pull up the list, and now I actually come into the cube with a mindset of what I want to build. So like last time I was like, I want to build Tyranitar. So I just like went after the T-Tar pieces that I wanted for the core and just did that every time. And it's such a different like experience drafting when you know what you're looking for. I think that's like a big thing that I've started doing more and more.
Yeah, I think depending on the style of draft, the first one you mentioned where you're rolling die for certain archetypes, that's going to obviously mean that you already know what synergies to look for like as you draft. So you don't really have the same weighing up process of like consistency versus power versus like drafting open just in case good cards come down the line so you can like pivot onto different things. So you lose some of the strategy in the draft, but it means that everyone gets functioning decks. So the playing experience is like safe for everyone kind of thing. You know that everyone will function. Whereas when it's all jammed in together, it's how well everyone can operate on those sort of key principles of Pokemon, which is like, don't brick, make sure you don't miss like an energy drop or supporter, make sure you can hit your evolutions and actually get your strategy going, as well as like, is the strategy one of the stronger ones in the draft? What do I have to be aware of? What can I cover within my deck? As well as, you know, at times knowing when none of the cards in the pack can help you. What's the best card to take away from other players? What decks am I most afraid of? Or what can I just take away from someone else that's like a consistency piece? What's someone trying to win in this sort of situation? There's like so much to the drafting process. It's oftentimes the most fun thing about Cube. As fun as it is to actually sit down and play the games, the draft is actually like a really integral part of the experience. So I really like just a traditional draft open completely. The one thing I dislike is when people take a random amount of cards away from the cube to start with, just to sort of like make the numbers work. Because sometimes you can have like if you have like 6, 7, 2 or whatever for an 8-person draft, but you've only got 7 players, and if you just like take at random like 50 cards out or whatever it is, that really bugs me because then people can get completely screwed by just like the random cards that got pulled out. So my main thing is like, at least let everyone have an equal chance to make every line work in your draft. So then it's purely down to like what they see and their skill in the draft itself. So that's like my main sort of bugbear in the draft. But there's all sorts of ways you can do it. I tried an auction draft the other day, which is really interesting, where you'll start with a set amount of money and 4 cards get flipped face up. And you basically go around the table bidding for that lot of cards, and then you sort of take them for yourself. There's like line drafting, grid drafting, like Solomon drafting. I've looked at all sorts of different ways. So yeah, I've done quite a few different things, and even things like shops at the end. Like you said at the start, you roll for lines or whatever. There can be a thing towards the end of the draft where everyone has, again, like there's a shop that just gives you excess things from like an N to a Ditto Prism Star to just like a couple evolution middling lines, just so that you can fill out your curved kind of thing. And everyone has like a set like amount, and then they can go to the shop and finish off their deck, stuff like that. So that all of these things make the draft very different, and help like makes you prioritize things differently. But they're all just like different fun ways to spice up a draft, really. And even cubes that weren't intended to try some of these, you can still again make different decks of like different power levels. If you, for example, go to like a pancake draft where you start discarding cards as well as drafting for yourself, because then people are hate drafting like actively so much where there's like this discard pile that no one can touch. So you can even make your own cube feel really differently balanced based on how the draft actually goes. Even pack sizes change that. Like if you have 10 card packs compared to like 15 card packs, the first pick is like way more important because you know that you're basically only getting 2 dregs at the end compared to like potentially viable cards that can sneak through and come back to you. So all of these things are like constant things to be aware of as you're playing cube. It sounds really complicated, and it is, but you sort of it's a lot of intuition and it's a lot of just like experience from cubing, and ultimately it's not that complicated because you're still just like, more often than not, I see the card that I think is the strongest for either the synergies that I have or just in the early packs some of the best things I could take. And then you just take that and sort of try and memorize some stuff that's coming around, but it's not like you're trying to do weird, what's it called? The sort of memory where you can see it all, photographic memory, right? It's not like you're trying to do that for every single pack. You're just trying your best most of the time. But yeah, Cube Koga is the best website in the world, by the way, and I have a number of my cubes on there already.
Yeah, to go off what Joe said about like changing stuff, that's something I'm experimenting with. I have an expansion pack to my IRL cube, so I went from 400 cards and basically found another 140. And so like last time, Venusaur went on an absolute tear. So I was like, I'm taking the Venusaur out, I'm taking the Tangrowth out, and I'm gonna put these cards in. Or, like for example, I felt that like Donphan was too broken, so I put in Hippowdon instead of Donphan to see what happened. It's like it's fun to like switch in lines and stuff, or you could just put all 540 cards on the table and say like, "There's 540 cards. Let's see what happens." That's actually something I'm very happy that I've like tried out and like started messing with is the idea of expanding a cube beyond the initial list.
Yeah, and I know Puka has his Chaos draft, and he has what he calls a broken bag, where just they're much stronger than the majority of cards that are in the main sort of expansion of his cube. And then they pull like 12 or so from random for each draft. So they don't feel oppressive over and over and over again, but they have their chance to shine like every couple of weeks when you draft it or whatever. So that's also like a cool policy to keep things fresh.
Oh, that sounds so cool.
Yeah.
So question on your preferences, because some cubes have straight evolution lines, like, I don't know, maybe an 8, 6, 4, whatever evolution line, and others can be mutant. Are you preferential of either? Is it like, I really like to do this one over the other one, or is it like, I don't care, they're both fine? And for anyone who's not listening, like a straight line would be like there's 8 Ghastlies, 6 Haunters, 4 Gengars, versus a mutant would be a Ghastly could evolve into a Kadabra, which could evolve into a Psychic Gardevoir.
I do have a preference. And I learned this from Andrew Mahone, another person who is extremely experienced in the cubing realm, beyond what I could like have of knowledge. But I basically thought I wanted to build a mutant cube at one point. He explained, let's say you have a Sableye on the bench, right? Normally, a Sableye can never become anything else. Or even worse, you could have a Squirtle on the bench. Normally, that Squirtle will always be a Squirtle until it becomes a War Turtle and then eventually a Blastoise. However, with a mutant cube, that could become an Octillery, and then it could become a Feraligatr or something like that, right? And it is fun having the unpredictability of it, but with new players, which is a lot of the crowd that I get with my cube, is a lot of newer players. That kind of draft and that kind of ability to like play around basically anything can become like you can get any stage 2 from this Squirtle on the bench. It is a little bit more difficult, and it is a lot more of a challenge for them to take on. Which is kind of like why I stray away from mutant cubes. And personally, I don't like that. I don't like the like kind of unpredictability of like, oh, he has a Sableye that he junk hunted with. Well, now it's an Umbreon. Oh, now it's a Tyranitar, knowing that like a basic will stay a basic that can't evolve is always kind of like reassuring to me when I play cube at least.
Yeah, I think from a gameplay standpoint, you know what to play around much more often. You know what's in someone's range a lot of the time when you're playing regular evolution. Whereas, like you say, Cube can do really wacky things that were like never intended. So firstly, it's down to the mutant builder to try and still balance that, despite having to balance like 700 cards all against each other. Like you shouldn't really ever belong together, but they do, because there's obviously like cross-typing synergies all over the place in Mutant all the time, and people will just pick up like good basics of whatever type just because they're like setup Pokemon that then they randomly get into their stage 1 or whatever that could be, another draw Pokemon or just a random type coverage attacker type thing. So I think it's much more difficult to balance. It takes much longer to make a mutant cube good because there's a lot of things to test over and over again. You may not, you may have drafted your cube like 10 times and this one interaction never came up before, and then it does, and then it's like, oh, the cube broke kind of thing, and this was not fun to play against for anyone. And yeah, it does create a different playing experience. You almost have to play like a pansy in Mutant all the time, because there's the big what if of like, what if they drafted this line topper and they're playing this or whatever. So it really makes the opening turns a little bit strange. Maybe if you're all playing in person around that table and you can see each other playing the decks, you get a bit of a feel for it. So as you get into like rounds 2, 3, 4, you sort of know their main cards, their main attackers and stuff. So it does become normalized. You know what damage to play out of and stuff like that. But not for the opening couple of rounds. So it's a bit of a Wild West. Whereas regular draft, I feel like it's less fun to actually draft because more people tunnel vision into evolution lines like all the time. It's like, I'm the grass guy, I'm the fire guy, I'm the water guy. Whereas in Mutant, people cherry pick all over the place, and you basically have to draft open to actually have the best chance of having a good deck. Whereas tunnel visioning early, just by like, if you see a good stage 2 line topper of a certain type, oftentimes people then start to build synergies completely around one thing, and people are less likely to pivot, and it makes the draft slightly easier because people aren't just like cherry picking bits that you were hoping would come back all the time. So I think from a drafting standpoint, it's less fun. From a playing standpoint, it's much more beginner friendly. It's much easier to build a cube, and the playing experience does feel more like sort of standard, I guess, because you can intuitively know what your opponent is in reach of most of the time.
See, and mine is nowhere near as intricate as either of yours. I just hate Mutant because that's not how the game works. Like, I just like don't want to watch a Sableye evolve into an Umbreon because that's not supposed to happen. I'm sure there's plenty of really good Mutant cubes, but like, no.
I mean, there is a cube out there that breaks all the rules, and it's actually Joe's all basic no bricks cube. That is the cool. I saw that video and I was like, my man has broken the matrix. Like, this is so cool. Because I've always like had problems with evolution lines, and I had to give you a compliment on that. That cube is sweet.
Thank you. But there's no evolving in that one, Mellow, so it's fine.
Yeah, they're all just basics. Look it up. I'll send it
to
you later.
It's like playing a giant SP format, essentially.
Okay, that sounds better. Because as someone who's newer-ish to the game, when you say all basics, I'm like, so we're shoving our tag teams at each other, like.
No, all one prizes. Don't worry about that.
Okay, that sounds better. About the drafting, this question was asked in chat, and now I really want to get to it. XDigit asks, does it make sense to be flexible into the second pack into a limited Pokemon format? And so I think we can kind of expand this question from specifically about like second pack, but like, how long are you staying flexible in a traditional draft of like, I'm just picking what I think are the best cards? Until what point are you like, this is my strategy, now I have to go into it? Are you immediately into a strategy? Are you waiting till literally the end? Like, where are you at with that?
I know it's not really for me, it's not a cut and dry answer. It depends how many overall you're drafting. It depends so obviously the cards you see are going to be the main dictator, right? If you don't see any like build around or super powerful stage 2s or even cards that you're super interested in the opening packs, draft open. Keep drafting open. Keep drafting consistency cards if you value them highly enough and you think they'll actually make your deck. But pick up different type. I would always suggest picking up at least a handful of like lower evolution lines. If it's, if there's something like 6, 5, 4 or whatever, picking up a basic hero there speculatively is never going to be a bad thing, because if you then hit like the best or one of the best reasons to play that type, you can pivot. If you get that indicator around the table that there's something open, you can get that pivot and you can start drafting really greedily, because you can then continue to pick the better support cards that you get in the cube, and things can wheel around. So it's always completely down to the situation and how the draft is feeling for you. If you rip open a pack and you see like one of the best stage 2s of a certain type, and then your next like 2 or 3 packs come with like a stadium card that works really well with it, or like a tool card that works really well with that one type, it can be fine to just like tunnel vision in, but be aware that things can be taken away from you as well. So having that backdoor option of a fallback, whether it being a different type or different stage 1s or something that you can move into, is always a good idea, I'd say. But there's been plenty of drafts where I've tunnel visioned and it's worked well. There's been plenty of times I've tunnel visioned and it's gone badly. And then there are times when I've drafted open, it's gone really well, because I've been able to jump ship and actually get pieces that hadn't even been opened up yet. No one had actually had the indicators to take a certain type. So that's why you saw like objectively strong cards in packs staying, because no one had the synergies for those cards just yet. and then they just come later in the pack, and it gets a bit scary. But then last pack magic kind of happens here and there, and it all comes together. And then there's times where that doesn't happen. Someone picked it speculatively early, and then you're like, well, now I'm playing consistent mediocre, but I'm not the most powerful deck around the table. So both ways can go badly. It's just completely based on how the packs lie, really. You can only take what you see. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Joe summed it up pretty well. Like it's not like, oh, I'm gonna be done being opened by pack 5. Like it depends a lot on the cube, what you've seen in the first like opening packs, like how good the couple last cards every pack have been. To some cubes, you'll just be handed like a Magnemite, and you're like, sweet, I'm never touching this card. Or you'll be handed a Magnemite, and like, okay, I can use this, right? It really depends on the cube list as well. But like a prime example of someone not drafting open and then realizing they have to, they were drafting my cube, and 2 people were drafting the Hydreigon line, and this is what we call unintentional hate drafting. They didn't realize either of them were drafting it. They just kept taking pieces that they saw in their first few packs. But at the end, they both like started looking through their stuff, and one person took all 4 Hydreigons, the other person took all 4 Dino. So neither of them could actually use the cards because there's no way to get them in play. So one of them had to play like a really low consistency, low power like Guardy deck. The other one had to play like a really low powered Embor deck because they both just like tunnel vision super hard into the Dark Engine and then very swiftly realized they messed up and they were too far gone to like back out of it. But again, as Joe said, like sometimes you can tunnel vision into a line. Like I knew when I tunnel visioned a T-Tar, nobody was touching it but me because the list, Empoleon, Porygon Z, your Lucarios, Garchomps in that cube specifically, that's what people went for. I knew Tyranitar would not be touched because nobody ever does. I got like 4/4/4 Tyranitar. I got all the darkness energies. I was golden. I ran through that thing. It really comes down to like who you're playing with, what's in the cube, what you're seeing in the packs. And that's like not a great answer to someone who's trying to learn how to cube. But the best way to like learn is to just start doing it because you get better as you go on. Like you'll start seeing patterns.
The draft will tell you where you should be going, basically, because you know what's there, what's not there, and you can only pick the best cards that you're seeing. But if you're like just praying that something miraculously comes together with no sign of like your type cards coming around, like say you're really hard on trying to go like Empoleon or something, but you've not managed to pass anything like Rough Seas, you've not managed to pass that dive ball and it's not come back round. There's definitely times in drafts where there can be cards that could be good in your deck, but you almost want to have that indication. You want to know if there's things being drafted open. So you can even use these sorts of things as benchmarks to see, why did someone take my random Piplup on like pick 4 or 5 or whatever, Why would anyone do that? Oh, they must also be on Empoleon. Is it time to jump or am I happy to compete? These are things that you have to like figure out on the fly as you're drafting.
Like the flip side of that is like you're seeing like Mareeps. Let's say you want Ampharos really bad.
Exactly.
Mareeps keep coming around. You're just like, all right, I know this line is safe. I can start taking pieces of it and like potentially have something out of it. Yeah, it's like there's both sides of the coin you can work off of.
And when you see stuff like that, even for like good lines, if Ampharos is objectively like a decent line in your cube, if you think like previously it's been a popular archetype and they're still coming around, that's a really good indicator that they're still in unopened packs, which is like super good for you. Because by then other people may have already committed their chips to a different type. So then there's more likelihood that objectively strong cards later are valued less by other people, because at that point they're only looking for consistency and synergy cards for their specific type, which means that like had these Ampharos been open pack 1, they'd be snap picked because there's enough time in the draft. But that doesn't really happen as you get further into it. So there's more likelihood that you can actually make something like that come together.
See, you're getting into what my strategy is. And I'm super happy if you both tell me that I should try other stuff because it's not that great. But I'm always the type of person who's just like consistency. And then towards the end, it's like, which basics are still around? I'm just going to shove those in, when the pack has like 4 cards left in it. Like, yeah, Flaffy, sure, Marie, okay. And I just kind of get handed whatever. And that's what I build my deck around. I don't know if it's...
that can work sometimes, right? Like if you see Uxie, like Uxie with setup is a broken card. Like that's what it is. It's insane. It's super strong. So like you want to take that sometimes, right? But then there's also the consideration like, oh, I wanted to build fire, and here is, a Blaziken that I need. Do I take the Uxie or do I take the Blaziken? And sometimes, as Joe said, you let the Blaziken go, and if it comes back, you know that you're going to be safe for a while to keep passing fire cards for consistency. That's like a huge 10,000 IQ play you can make. It's like, all right, here's a Blaziken. Hopefully, no one takes it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where if that Blaziken is core to your strategy, you got to take it. But if it's a good card that you could play, but it's not the prime. And if it's not your energy accelerating Blaziken or whatever, but it's just a good attacking one, it's I can survive this draft not picking this card. Let's see where it goes. And if I get it back, great. This improves my deck. If not, I can still build around with the other cards I've already got, or there's other options that I can get later down the line, sort of thing. So it's a constant evaluation, and there's no right answer how to do it. But I always think that picking bombs or cards that are very, very strong, usually this is line toppers stage 2. Sometimes it can be integral support stage 1 cards to synergize with things. You have to prioritize those very highly. And sometimes they're worth abandoning your original picks or where you were at the beginning, because this card can power spike you into a really good deck, even with the remaining packs or whatever. It depends on how balanced the cube is as well. If there's one or two clearly better lines than others, and you just open up the best of the best line, it's one of those things that will force you to pivot sometimes. But that can also be a downside. So if the cube is more balanced, you don't have to do such drastic pivots all the time. So again, it's based on the cube itself as well.
Are you both a fan, and you both have cubes, so obviously it might be your experience with it, but are you a fan of I want every evolution line to be equal power, or do you we can make this one a little bit stronger than the others, and kind of let people draft around whether they want to risk it or not? Or
yeah, I don't think everything has to be exactly the same hit points, exactly the same damage. There's already weakness that comes into play. That can be ×2 if you want it to be. It could be as the card is red, it can be +20 or whatever house rule you want it to be. But type coverage is already going to give people disadvantages no matter how they've built their deck. Or if people are building a certain way, do they go mono one type, or do they start splitting to make things different? But just because there's so many cross synergies, people are going to build different decks of different power anyway. And even if there's something that's high priority, like you say, it means that people will naturally be picking these cards up in speculation of pulling the line topper. For example, if you had Telepass Guardi and it was in a Diamond and Pearl format cube, people would speculatively take Curliers and Raltses. So one person gets it, the Guardi, but it's not they can build a full Guardi deck a lot of the time, unless they are hard on it and everyone else is ignoring it for whatever reason. But people drafting open would probably take speculative Raltses and Curliers over the speculative Chimchar or whatever else it would be, because they get rewarded for getting Telepass. So having obviously stronger cards can feel bad, because just because they drafted it, they've got the better deck than anyone else. So obviously you don't want it to be too spiky, but it's not everything has to be set at 130 hit points, set at 70 damage cap or whatever. You can have some flexibility in there, and obviously attack costs and all this other stuff comes into play, and acceleration and stuff. So it's not exactly the raw stats that always matter. It's also consistencies of the lines, and if they can do funky stuff, and how flexible they are. So all sorts of things come into play when you're trying to balance. But again, it's one of those things where you just play it out and see. One of my first ever cubes that I built, I had a Garchomp line. It didn't have any support stage 1, but because the Garchomps just often have free retreat, even though they had the same damage output and similar hit points for everything else, just because they had free retreat, they were just way too strong. They just were so good because one shots weren't common, and just being able to maneuver between them, and there was a Gabite that searched a few of them out. It was just way better than everything else, even though it looked on paper slightly better at best. But yeah.
And I assume that was a minimal gust format.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just not touching them again.
It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think especially building my cube, the first time I was trying to make sure everything was balanced, but then I realized I had 4 or 5 Pokemon that all did Rain Dance / Deluge effects, which I hate in cubes personally, because I feel you set them up and then you go, all right, I'm just gonna draw energies and attack now. That's my game plan, and that's fine for some people, but for me, I want there to be a genuine thought process to your game. Is like that's why I love my water line so much. I'm so proud of it. It's Milotic Swampert. You have to blow up the Milotics to set up your Swamperts, right? Because there's not enough energy acceleration to set up a Swampert by itself. So like you have to give up a prize card just to like start swinging really hard with your power draw ones. But like I think a huge thing people undermine is retreat cost. I think you need to balance retreat cost because having a really strong free retreater is a huge difference than having Pokemon with 3 retreat or 2. That's something that's like completely ignored in standard because everything plays like force switch right now, I feel like. And the strength of like something like Floatstone is so strong. No retreat cost is like really, really important in Pokemon, and people don't realize that unless you take that away from them. But like, yeah, you don't need to like set a Pokemon like everything has to have no more than 150 HP and stuff like that. You can have like a couple outliers here and there.
So going back to the drafting strategy, things like that. I know this is another question. It's kind of like it depends technically, but how much are you going for like support Pokemon, these bench sitters? Because you only have so much bench space, and usually, let's assume you have to evolve. It's not a big basic cube or small basic or whatever. How many bench sitters can you really afford to put into a deck before it's like, these are just clogging my hand, I have nowhere to put them? Have you put any thought into that? Because that tends to be my problem, is I just have too many bench sitters.
I've put a ton of that into I actually have like focused on that in my cube. Cards like Guardians Rising Oricorio, Unbroken Bonds Mewtwo, Cursed Eyes Absol, stuff like that. There's tons of that in my cube. Pokemon that you have to put on your bench to use an effect, or things like Primate Wisdom Oranguru, Munchlax with Snack Surge. Pokemon that like they sit on your bench and they take up one of your 5 bench spots. And it's super important to like manage your bench space because very fast you realize, oh my gosh, I've clogged my bench and I'm gonna get punished by this like Mindjack Zoroark, or I need to put another Bronzor down, but I can't because I filled my bench with draw Pokemon, right? I think bench space is completely disregarded in standard. People kind of just like slam stuff on the field now. And they don't realize I need to conserve a 5th bench space because my attacker is going down soon and I need to start setting up a new one, or I might get bossed and like lose my energy acceleration, and I might need to set up a second one. So yeah, I put a lot of thought into bench space management in mine, at least.
Yeah, I'm the same. I try and have a lot of draw in basically every type line as I can, so everyone can get into play, everyone can get into the game. So I always want to have that, and I always want people to prioritize drafting those as well. I think like depending on how good the draw engine is, right? Sometimes you need one backup Porygon 2 and your whole deck's rolling. Sometimes you need like multiple stage 1s, or some of the stage 2s can end up being like bench sitters as well. But it's just how you build your deck, and not like flooding your deck with it, right? If you pick 1 or 2 of the better draw engines, you can just sit and be content with those. Sometimes you can have more obscure ones where you have like Starmie plus Delcatty plus this, that, the other. Sometimes it's Crush Draw plus Oranguru or whatever. Sometimes it takes multiple spots in your bench, but it's just how you build it to make it work. And I think it should be down to the players to manage the bench rather than the cube builder.
That makes sense. And how about constructing decks? Because it's not, you didn't just draft, for anyone who hasn't done it before, you didn't just draft 60 Pokemon or 60 cards. You draft like what, 80-ish usually? Maybe 100?
Yeah, it depends. I think 100 would be very high. I think 90 would be the highest
80,
end.
90,
yeah.
Okay.
89 is like pretty common.
So you got
because I've drafted a lot. I draft like 66 a lot of the time, where it gets a bit squeaky.
Ooh.
Yeah, you might get 80 cards, but it'll be like 66 you want in the deck. That's like generally what I cut down my lines to. I'm like, well, I can have -6 energy, so.
So yeah, how do you actually decide what goes into the deck? Because you can't play test. You really don't have time to draw practice hands, maybe 1 or 2 here or there, but how do you actually go about building the deck with too many cards? Because you have this emotional attachment to everything you drafted.
Especially if you drafted it like pick 1 in one of the packs.
Yes.
Oh man, you're like, I need you.
I mean, it's just one of those things where you have a picture in your head of what your deck wants to be doing. Firstly, how can you do that frequently? How can you recover your main attacker? How can you draw enough cards to actually pull things off. Those are the things you should probably prioritize. So supporters, I usually like pad out a good amount, as well as like support Pokemon. I'll try and have at least like a 2/2 line of whatever I'm trying to do, or multiple ways that I can draw cards. You want to have a decent thickness of attacker. You don't just want to have like a 1/1 line, because it's going to be difficult to get into play. You want to have multiple of these. Oftentimes the pyramid line is a decent way to go, where you just pad out extra basics, extra stage 1s, just so you can get them evolving quickly. Something that you hate in real TCG, but you do it in Cube quite a lot, because there's like only 1 or 2 good stage 2 attackers that you manage to draft. So you just play more Machops just so you can get them down onto the field or whatever. But yeah, I think it's just not trying to like reinvent the wheel. You're just trying to do a normal prize race a lot of the time. That's how most games of Pokemon will be won in Cube. So it's just doing your main strategy fairly consistently and fairly quickly, with maybe a few either tech cards for type coverages, or just for different approaches, whether you incorporate some like sniping or some gusting or this, that, and the other to give yourself win conditions outside of just beat down face. Yeah, I think that's really what you're doing a lot of the time.
I like beat down face though.
Beat down face works in Cube too. It's often really good.
You mentioned the Machops, and it was like, I don't know, I kind of want the base up Machop with a strong energy and a Diancie.
Yeah.
Just take all my prizes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always try and have at least one recovery card, and I have a friend who has such a habit of decking himself out in Cube, which is an actual problem. People don't realize it is. He has such a habit that he's drafted like 3 ordinary rods in Cubes before. So like now it's become a thing where if you see one, you have to take it, because he will, as a meme, and then put it in his deck. And he still decks out somehow. Like, not sure how he manages, but it's pretty sweet. But recovery is super important. I try and put as much of my core like attacking and or support lines in as I can. Like, obviously sometimes you're like, this card does 60 damage for 3 energies, and it's just kind of like, it's okay, but I have the better pieces, so I'm gonna go with them. I always want at least one draw Pokemon, whether it be Cinccino or Claydol or Macargo or Oranguru, whatever it may be. I want something that lets me see more cards than just a supporter, every turn. That's something that I found very important, because you want to extend your turns beyond like, I'm going to play a Sycamore. Okay, I didn't draw anything good. Cool. Like having a make do to draw 2 more cards, or smooth over to like, control your top deck is a pretty big deal in my mind.
Yeah, games are just naturally longer, right? So you get to proc the ability like 5-6 times. So it's just so much more value than standard. Like outside of Control, where Cinccino does it a million times, like even in like Urshifu Control, you make do like 6 times the entire game if you get like a 2/2 line out or whatever.
Yeah.
But in Cube, one Cinccino is doing that like 12 times, because games are longer. So those Pokemon are like way more valuable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like people definitely prioritize getting them out. Like, something I'm super happy about is Airmail Pidgeotto existing with Quick Search. I think that's like a really fun thing, because your Airmails become Quick Search, but it only has 10 more HP, which is kind of crazy to think. So that thing's
still OP.
like,
That card is OP
broken.
as hell.
Yeah, that card is super broken. But I've also started to realize, like, Pidgeot, after like 3 turns of quick searching, you're kind of just quick searching to use the ability. Like, some people don't build their decks with enough 1-ofs or like important pieces to like quick search out, that they're like, oh wait, I don't need this anymore.
One of my biggest pet peeves is people quick searching energy just because they didn't put enough energy in their deck to begin with.
Yes.
Remind me to never cube with you, because if you watch me, that would be something. Like, I need 6 energy for 6 KO. It's like, we can do this. Cards like that though are like finding the balance between like a Claydol and like how much consistency do I need to just get the Claydol out, and then once it's out, you just kind of roll, right? Or like a quick search Pidgeot, where you're just like, once I get this, I'm fine. So it's like finding that balance of like, what consistency do I need other than get out good card and then be good, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing. Like, as soon as you draft one of those types of cards, you're like super valuing things like Evo Incense or Evo Soda, compared to like, sometimes you're picking it over like a Sycamore, because you're like, I just want Pidgey out. Pidgey's better.
I mean, I've taken Baltoy as my first pick in a pack because I saw nothing else, and I was like, you know what? I know Claydol is here. I know Claydol is broken, and I'm gonna take this. Next pack comes around. In the first pack, I open it, Claydol, and I got him a Cargo, which is the stupidest. It's basically computer search every turn plus cards.
I love Smooth
Insane.
Over Macargo. Just as a card.
Smooth Over Macargo is so fun. I love Smooth Over.
Oh, man, that's bringing up my pet peeve. Quick aside. Friend's lowish power cube, maybe medium power, but it's a singleton cube. There is a Claydol in there. I've never seen it, like, at all, and it's like, oh man, just one of these days I have to get lucky enough to actually see this card.
That thing's got to go like the second it gets open, so you just got to get it in the first pack.
Oh yeah, but it's still like, I know it's here. I know there's a Dedenne in there too. Like, let me open one of these things. What are your thoughts when, because I know this happened to you. You open a pack, you know, there's the 15 cards or whatever, however big the pack is for the thing, and you're just like, this is broken. Like, what are your thoughts when you have like Bill and Computer Search, and, you know, like, just like every good card is in there, and you're like, what do you prioritize over the other stuff? And we've seen on Twitter, it's the P3 group, right, has been like, this is a broken pack. What do you pick? Like, what do you pick? What do you prioritize in those just like broken packs?
If I know what else is in the cube, it'll come down to that. But if not, like, let's say there's a Sycamore, a DCE, a Rare Candy, stuff like that. If there's a card that can be replaced in some form by another card, I'm gonna avoid it. Like obviously, like Ultra Ball, it's a really good card, but there's also Pokemon Communication, let's say, in the cube. It's not the same, but it has a similar function. So like, I might avoid the Ultra Ball because I might know there's more coming, or there's a card that does a similar aspect. But if there's like a Computer Search, I am taking the Computer Search if it's the only one, right? Like if it's a one of, I'm like, that's mine. It really just depends though on the cube as well. Like sometimes, you know, like this card is broken, like Claydol or Pidgeot, stuff like that. You're like, I need this in my list. You take it. Or sometimes it's just like, whatever I take here, I'm not going to get too punished for, because like if it's all trainer cards, there's like obvious replacements for them at some point.
Yeah, it always feels good when you draft a card that you know gets in the deck every time. I don't think you can ever be angry at that. But I think, yeah, it's kind of on your own preference. Cards like DCE that you mentioned, they can be barnstorming in some cubes and not great in others. Just depends on what attackers you end up drafting. So I think that's one of the things where if you pick DCE, that then sort of warps the rest of your draft, because then you're prioritizing DCE attackers every now and then. Whereas like a research or whatever just goes into every deck as like a one-off, and I don't think you ever complain about that. Interestingly, research is more difficult to play in cube than in other formats.
It really is.
Yes.
So I actually value that less than like a Pond or a Cynthia or any of those things. But again, it's experience a lot of the time.
That makes sense. What other like strategies outside of just like play more are things that you would tell someone who is new to cube and like they're trying to do well? They're like, what are some of those like beginner strategies that you feel are good that we haven't already talked about? Because there's been
I think looking on Cube Koga and just seeing what a cube consists of is oftentimes really good. Just trying to like, if it's like your first cube and it is via Cube Koga, you can see the entire list. You can look at like ratios, so you can see how much you are expected to draft for like supporters or trainers, for example. So like if there's 100 supporters in a cube and there's 8 people, you're expected to get like 12, something like that, you know? So if you see them, you prioritize them more than perhaps other cubes where there's more supporters here and there. So it's one of those things where like it's always dependent on the cube that you're playing. But I think in general, a lot of the time, there will be more basics in stage 1s than the stage 2s. So you can let those fly by that little bit more a lot of the time. Don't get so focused on drafting consistency that you draft like hops and hows like aggressively or whatever. Pick them when they're the right card to pick. Pick them when there's not a card that you think is useful for you. You know? Allow those things to go through at times, because you know that your deck will still work without them. So yeah, I just think firstly, tunnel visioning is the first thing that most beginners will do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you want to wean yourself off of that because you will get punished in drafts if you purely tunnel vision every cube that you ever play. So yeah, a few different things going in there. But yeah, look at Cube Koga, look at lists, see like what lines are trying to do, and then see, it's not only a type that you can draft towards to make synergies happen. There's going to be cross synergies in all sorts of cubes all the time, and you can make weird things happen.
I mean, another shameless plug to Joe, but I watched his what was it? You drafted like Mighty Yenna and like SP stuff.
Oh yeah,
that video alone, but in general, watching like a person draft a cube like that, like Joe like said, like this card or these cards, which I want to see, but I haven't, so I'm going to take this. Like just seeing how the mindset of a person who's played cube a lot, that always helps. I learned a lot from that.
In that draft specifically, I knew that Skuntank was by far the most ridiculous card possible in that cube, and I took it in a pack over Comp Search and Research, and it was like my pack 2, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've won this draft, like just by having Skuntank.
What does the Skuntank do?
it just poisons, right? But there was multiple Verbanks in this draft, so I could poison for 3 damage for free every turn, and that was just also, like way too unfair when there was like 80 hit point Pokemon.
I believe there was a Mighty Yenna with like if it was affected by a special condition, it doesn't have an attack cost, so it was a free attacker with the Skuntank, which I believe poisons both Pokemon or something.
Non-SPs, right?
Yeah, it was something along those lines. Like it was this crazy combination of Mighty Yenna plus Verbank, no energies to use those. That's just like
And like I think that was intentional from the cube builder, but they had it with Ariados, which is like another stage 1. So it was like slower. It was like worse for everyone but me. Like it was just like really, really good for my deck. Yeah, I got pretty lucky in that draft. I got Claydol and I got Garchomp, which is
you got like 2/2 Garchomp.
Garchomp was by far the best attacker possible in that draft, and I got both of them. Yeah.
I mean, other than like playing and watching, and going on Cube Koga, I like thinking of like, read it on cards, like just read Pokemon cards. PKMNcards.net, I want to say.
Good site. I really
PKMNcards.com. Crazy website. It has every Pokemon card. You can search by like what the attack says. You can search by like formats they were in. You can just look at Pokemon cards. That's where I get a lot of ideas to put cards in my cube from. You can look up like all the stage 2s that are a certain type of all time. Just like look through all the cards. Just reading cards that you've seen in a cube and being like, why has the cube creator put it in here? Like, is there a reason that this random stage 2 is like really broken and why I lost to it? That's like a huge thing you can always learn. It's just by like looking at the cards that exist in Pokemon.
How much is there like a mental game when you're drafting of like talking about the cards that are in the pack, like vaguely, and it may depend on how close you are with everyone you're drafting, but how much does that play a role in like, oh yo, this is broken, my deck, so how much do you both do that stuff?
Oh my god. It's like again, my friend who decks out a lot, he also loves Blastoise, so anytime there's a cube with Blastoise, I know he's playing Blastoise. Like every time he plays I don't get it. Like, we'll play a cube with base cards in it, and surprise, he ends up with Rain Dance Blastoise, right?
It's a good ability.
It's just like, it's a broken card. It's super good, but like, I just always know it's gonna happen. Or like, I know my friend, like, he loves like Yanmega stuff, and he loves like energy, like manipulation. So like, I knew he was gonna draft Venusaur when he played my cube. What does he draft? Venusaur. But there's also like a mental game of saying like, man, these 2 cards are really good. I hope one of them gets back to me. And then you keep them on the front of the pack, and you pass it to the next person, but you pass them 2 cards you don't want back, and so they take one. That's my 10,000 IQ play.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. I mean, obviously not directly saying what the card is like pretty much a golden rule. Like, you shouldn't tell them, like, Psyduck is in this pack, or whatever, But you can definitely give, like, hints and be like, oh, this is broken, I can't believe I've opened these, I've got such a hard choice right now, like stuff like that. It's just like good banter to have like as you're going through the draft, and it will just naturally happen, But as long as you're not saying like, this card didn't come back around, or like I can't. You can say I can't believe this came back around, but you can't say like I can't believe no one's drafting Hydreigon. You know, you can't like say that because that actually does affect the draft. You know, so as long as you're like vague about it, I think it's always like in good faith.
How much when you have a pack and you want a card to come back to you that you think could come back, how much are you trying to put it like, you definitely don't put it on the top, right? But are you putting 2 good cards around it so that people get distracted of like, oh, I'd rather have this, or you just like try and hide it the very last one so they don't get to it in time, or is there any thought into that?
If it's pack 1, probably, but if it's like the last pack and you know people aren't taking your lines, it's like they can have it if they want it, bro. Like if they're really gonna draft this random Torchic at this point, go for it, right? Like I don't care.
Yeah, I think I just do a little like cut and pass pretty much every time.
Okay.
If you see someone else like arranging a thing over the place, you're like, they care way more about this pack than all the other packs that they've looked at. If you just cut and pass, that's the best hiding of tells you can do, right?
See, maybe I don't look at people enough because I'm one of the slowest drafters.
Yeah.
So I've never noticed people doing that because I've never looked at people, but I definitely should.
You can see if there's a backlog. If there's like 3 packs next to someone because they haven't made that decision, you know that they're tanking for something, right?
Look, that just happens every time I draft, okay?
I mean, it's going to happen to someone. Yeah.
You gotta actually like play it. So like if you see 2 cards you really want, you have to like somewhat think about it, but not play it off that like you're really thinking hard about these 2 cards. Because the next person will then know you really wanted one card in that pack. They might try and figure it out and just take it because it depends on like my group. We don't like try and hate draft each other. Like if someone knows that someone's playing Alakazam, they won't just start drafting Abras just because. Like it really depends.
Hate drafting is vital.
Hate drafting is fun though.
Hate drafting is a vital skill in Cube.
I would
vital
just like
skill.
I used to take the Fossil Aerodactyl every time it passed me in a cube because I absolutely hate that card. I have so many gripes with that thing. That and the Jungle Ditto. And I knew people wanted them. I didn't care. I was like, nope, this is my
Jungle Ditto is super good.
Yeah.
It's Fossil. It's Fossil Ditto. Yeah.
Oh, it's Fossil. It's so stupid when that card exists in the same era as a Gardevoir GX. And it goes, I am now at 230 HP Gardevoir GX. Have fun.
That's a fair complaint for that one.
Broken card.
But then they just retreat and they get themselves knocked out. Because you just go into like a Munchlax or something.
Any other thoughts on Cube before we get to our questions from Twitch chat?
Play Cube. It's awesome. It's worth it. Check out Cube Koga. Check out Joe's content on Pokemon on Cube. It's so worth it. The format is incredible. There's so much you can learn from it. Definitely try and get somewhat into Cube.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I think
and it's an evergreen. It's evergreen as well because like you can hark back to your favorite time in Pokemon, or it can just be your favorite way to play Pokemon. Like you can make it exactly your favorite way to play the game, which is something you can't do in standard or expanded or anything because there will be things that annoy you. And if you make it how you want to play it, you literally can't not have fun if you build the cube the way you like Pokemon.
I think one thing that hasn't been said that should be said is it's also one of the best ways to improve your game. I've only done Cube a handful of times, but I've become a significantly better deck builder because of it. Like I went from someone who could not build a competent deck. Like I had to net deck and change versus now I can put together something. And sometimes it still sucks, of course, but like I can build a deck from scratch of an archetype that doesn't exist. And I think Cube is a big part of that because it's literally all you're doing is your deck building. And so it's definitely a big way to improve your game if deck building and creativity and that like outside the box thinking aren't things you're good at, for sure. And I assume the play there's actually a lot because it's mostly going to be single prizers. Some cubes will have a few 2 prizers, but I haven't played any that are like 2 prize heavy. They probably exist.
They do exist, yeah.
Yes, they do.
But yeah, there's just a lot of
there's no tag team cube yet, I don't think.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, yeah.
No one wants that.
I don't think anyone actively wants a tag team cube.
We're going to Cube Koga real quick.
There probably is one.
There has to be one, right? There's no way no one's made it for.
I know there's a tag team in a GX cube. I know there's
Is
a
it the
Igglybuff.
triple babies? Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. That is like that's like acceptable, right? Like having.
I drafted and played
team
that card as well because I had Acerola, so I was just stalling with it. I built Pidgeotto to control with that cube the first time I played it. And yeah, I had babies with Acerola loop.
That's nuts.
Drafting control in cube is always really fun. Bob McDougall asked
Bob
if
just asked you.
Yeah, and it's like because it's so hard in a lot of cubes because they're never like blatantly control. And the problem is the cards that are good in control, like a Bunnelby, for example, is just a good card. Like every deck is like, I wouldn't mind this Bunnelby. So it's always such an interesting anyone who's able to successfully do it in a cube that's not a cube that didn't explicitly build a control archetype for someone to play in the draft.
I think it's a massive pitfall for beginners because it's the hardest and most challenging thing to weigh up your control pieces against your consistency pieces. Because if you draft too much one way, you'll either not draw enough cards and lose, or you'll draw as much as you want, but you don't actually have the control win conditions or like enough of them to beat the decks around the table. And weirdly, cube decks oftentimes they're packing energy acceleration or internal like switching outs and all this other stuff. So you can get railed by like one attacker that you weren't prepared for if you didn't draft exact cards. So it's the most Exodia you can possibly go for if you go for control. So literally you have to guarantee that it's completely open and that people aren't respecting it and it's wheeling.
Quick story time on that one. I put a control package into it was a Gengar deck. God awful deck. I drafted the whole line and I was so proud of myself because I have a full line. And then I actually read the cards. That's why you read the cards before you draft them. Like every one of these sucks. So I was like, thankfully I have a counter catcher and a Bunnelby and there was something else, but those were the only two cards that actually mattered. And I just I ended up decking out my opponents to win the 2 games that I won because it was like this Gengar sucks. Like I have to find a different way to win the game. So there's something to be said about though seeing that alternate way to build and figuring it out.
Usually I find the best way is hybridizing, where you have things like you said, Bunnelby, just some control pieces here and there, just some recursion of certain things here and there, but then also traditionally taking prizes, so you can answer threats just by KOing them and make your opponent play the game by like setting up new attackers and attaching energy like across multiple things, not just like announcing every turn. So normally it's hybridizing is where you're going to have the best success, and just like knowing when to ditch a prize race and go control route.
I mean, even to that extent, cube, as I said before, cube decks deck out a lot. It's like this very weird thing where you feel like you have a lot of cards, and you look at your deck like, I have 4 cards in deck. When did this happen? And it does happen. Like it's honestly a very common problem that new players don't realize. That's like when having that mini control package, like he's got 4 cards in deck, I can just like Bunnelby him twice and win, or something like that, right? Like very obscure situations that like you can get out of a pretty bad situation or kind of a harder game state to win by playing that, kind of like boss stalling or something like that.
Any other last second thoughts on Cube before we have a handful of questions from Twitch chat, but I want to make sure that we do this topic justice because not all the questions are Cube.
I'm good. I'm definitely going to update my guide though. My guide is like 5 years old now, and I have a lot more experience. So it's probably going to be like a 5-hour video.
Oh,
Let's go.
I'm excited for that. I love like the 5-hour videos you stick on and you just like sort your cards and you're like, this is my day.
Make sure check out, is it Team Omnipoke?
On Twitch, it's Team Omnipoke. Yeah. Okay. YouTube is just Omnipoke.
It's just Omnipoke. Okay, cool. Check out Omnipoke on YouTube for that. On Twitch, Team Omnipoke. Why was Omnipoke taken?
It was taken.
How dare they?
Don't know why, but there you go.
It's copycat. But make sure to check that out for some more content for that. But let's get into those questions from Twitch chat because there's a handful of them. And I'm kind of curious. So on some of these. Asian Ninja Evan asks, is Flaffy Box as bad as Mello says it's going to be? For what it's worth, I said it's not going to be very good. The single prize Flaffy box with Zekrom and Zapdos and whatever else, I think it's not going to be a very good deck. Either of you have thoughts?
Yeah, here's my thing. The Japanese metagame is almost always kind of all over the place compared to the United States and like the rest of the world. I remember in team-up format, like Zapdos, Jolteon, Zebstrika was everywhere. It was nuts, right? It was like, this Zapdos Jolteon thing is going to be like broken. And then it just kind of wasn't. Like, it was okay, but it wasn't this like tier 1 archetype that just like ran everything over. I mean, if you want to buy your Zekroms and your Zapdos now, and in case it becomes good, cool, you have the cards. But like, I'm not gonna get my hopes up for a one prize deck that kind of just like it can be beaten. It's not like this, oh my gosh, you get a combo off and you win kind of deal, you know?
Yeah, it sounds worse than Malamar.
Everything's worse
really
than
bad.
Malamar, though. That's
Malamar is just like the best stage 1 like recharge card ever.
That's every time I talk about Flaffy decks, people are like, well, Malamar ran the format, Electric ran the format, and it's like, yeah, but Malamar wasn't scary. Like, your opponent
Malamar
flipped over an Inkay, and you're just like, I can beat this.
Said they run the format. Malamar did not run any format.
In terms
even
of numbers,
Electric didn't run the format either.
There was a couple events where Eels like S tier, but like it was never like the best deck for like it's never been like the Virgin or the Sword Toad or like anything like that. It's never been that high of a caliber deck.
Flaffy trash. I just hate those types of decks. Don't make me set up 12 stage 1s to attack once.
Yeah. Sounds very bad.
Charizard Best asks, ask Joe what theme decks he likes.
They're all bad.
Do you not enjoy
theme deck? Theme deck is not even a fun format. I
love theme deck. What?
It gets boring after 2 turns because you're like, I'm just drawing energies.
Where's the strategy in a theme deck format?
There's so much strategy. There's no gust. It's set up.
There is not.
There's no. There's. It's better than Legacy. It's better than Expanded.
It's a format with 4 supporters, and it's completely based on who draws the first one first.
No.
And the worst part is they're not making any more theme decks, so the format is done. Like it, for the time being, Charizard is the best theme deck, and that's it.
That's
There's
not
no
even
changing
true.
What's better than Charizard?
Bro, the Raikou,
Dragonite's the best one, right?
Dragonite's also very good.
Dragonite, Pidgeotto's the best one because it has the most draw.
That's true, yeah.
But we've
like,
Shocklock.
You got the Dragonite deck. You have the Groudon deck, which I've heard is like somewhat okay. There's the Rillaboom deck. There's like 5-6 decks that are good, but like the old ones never gonna see play. There's ones that have 2 Charon in them. That's it. There's like theme decks that are so bad you'd never pick them up ever. So like the format's just not growing anymore. It's like investing and like trying to play it a lot. It's fun for a bit, but then you're like, all right, I'm kind of done with this.
It's basically open hand simulator. Like,
yeah.
What's your opening 7? Is it 1 basic or is it 2 and a supporter?
Now, theme decks for starting out and playing like new players, that's a different story because that's like a very slow tempo format that lets them like adjust to making mistakes and stuff. That's one thing. But like,
now if you make a mistake in theme, I'm gonna punish you on the theme deck ladder.
I mean, if anyone plays badly on theme decks, it gets punished. But
yeah,
I think it's actively hurting beginner players to play theme decks.
I think just playing with like 2 ADP-zation battle decks or something would just be like a lot more representation of what you have to be. That's so much more like what you're playing competitively.
Why would you play? Like, learning the theme format is like, can I ever attach this energy? Because I may not draw an energy off of my next 5 top decks ever again, and I just lose. So that you're preparing for things that don't happen in real standard almost ever.
That's fine. You can play both.
But it's such a waste of time.
No, that's what I do when I'm like, I want to play Pokemon, but I don't want to think. Theme deck is the way to go.
Where's the fun in not thinking, though?
I mean, there's thinking, but it's like a different, I don't know. There's no stress, I guess would be the way to put it. Because if I queue into standard, I want to win. Bro, theme deck all day. I love theme decks.
You just play like a meme deck in standard, and then you actually like get to try your strategy and then have fun and no pressure.
Then I hit Shadow Rider and they're just like House, Astral Barrage, GG's. It's like, okay, cool.
Didn't even play around it.
Oh, that's something that like I want to rant on. The baby horse for Shadow Rider is super toxic for standard. Like it's actually just unhealthy. Like
I mean, only if
Boo
you want to play Pokemon that evolve.
Boo was playing against Rapid Strike Box, and I checked the list. I was like, just Shadow Mist, and you win. And all Boo did was go Shadow Mist, and his opponent clicked the concede button.
I do agree with that one.
It's just like it's designed so much more broken than like the Ice Rider one. The Ice Rider basic is just like it's cool, but it's like 40 and 200 is not anything compared to 10 no special energy stadiums and 50 spread. Like,
yeah, one of those attacks didn't have to be there. I'm fine with one of the two being there, but the fact that both are there is just like sick. Thanks. Otherwise, Rapid Strike Malamar might be the BDIF though, so I guess that is a benefit.
Can't do 300 damage.
I did 300 damage the other day with it.
That's a lie.
Nah. 20 resistance on Umbreon Darkrai.
So stupid.
Boo CK asks, and I'm only going to ask this because he is a frequent guest host. For Joe, when is there going to be an Omnipoke KDR post-rotation collab? Specifically, Boo wants it. Boo and Locke. How do they contact you? And so you can tell them no.
For what? What do they want to collab on?
Post-rotation.
Well, me and Jack are going to be doing tabletop soon. So if you guys want to play on some tabletop, do you guys have tabletop?
Like tabletop simulator?
Well, Boo is.
If anyone has tabletop sim, we'll play.
Boo will have it.
There you go.
Boo will have for you.
Okay.
We can do some streams. Me and Jack are going to start. I think from next week we're going to start some streams.
There you go. They both do. So
they
slide in those
DMs.
Joe just said it's open.
Yeah. Boo and Locke are extremely well versed in Sword and Shield on. Like it's pretty crazy how good they are at it.
And
I started like theory crafting it last month, and I started playing it just last weekend. So it's still pretty raw.
Okay, I can't ask you then your full opinion, I guess, because it's only been a couple days, probably a handful of games. But like my brain and the couple times I've played Sword and Shield on has been they went first and got the turn 2 boss, or I went first and got the turn 2 boss. You don't shake your head. You're not supposed to agree. You're supposed to tell me it's going to be fine.
The format doesn't feel great. I'm going to be honest.
No, it doesn't feel amazing.
The format feels coin flip simulator. It really does.
Oh no.
Yeah, be as consistent as possible, and you just need to attach 2 energies in the first 2 turns and boss people.
Bad hands. Oh, bad hands.
Never have a bad hand.
No other.
You can't dead change anymore. You can't com anymore. So you just maximize copies of your VMAX. You have to play a VMAX
supporter,
basically.
Yeah,
and,
you're playing VMAXs.
You're either playing Inteleon engine, or you're losing the game.
Get your Inteleon
because you need to drizzle a boss. Yeah. I think like Ice Rider and Victini have been the strongest decks for me so far, purely because they boss more than the other decks on turn 2.
Ice Rider, very fun deck. It makes you think. There's some thought process to Ice Rider. I will say that.
Whether you have to discard or not.
Well, no, like that you use Pierce on the baby horse on a Shadow Rider, so then you can go Drizzile, VMAX, knockout with a Leon because it puts exactly at 320 damage. That's like my big brain play that I've used. I don't know. I just enjoy like the Inteleon line plus like a non-auto one-shot of VMAX kind of Pokemon.
But you pierce them and then they KO you, and then you have to Melanie. So
no, they suck. They're garbage.
That's not how that works.
Nah, they don't ever find the outs. It's easy, dog.
Yes, of course.
I'm super good. I got it. Trust me.
The deck that draws 12 cards a turn and has extra basic search. No chance.
Yeah, but they play 12 energy. Like, they're not finding anything turn 2. I'm telling you, it's fine.
Sure. But that's good to know the Sword and Shield on is. I mean, I'm hoping if Ice Rider weren't so good, Blaziken Zero Aura could be a deck. That's the only thing. At some point, sniping might be a thing.
Sniping's very strong.
Because that's the only comeback mechanic we have, right? With no stamp.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Zero Aura could see play with Rayquaza. I think that's more likely because Rayquaza's a rapid striker.
Yeah, but then I have to play Rayquaza.
Yeah, which is also quite bad, I think, so far.
Good. We had you on for a reason. This is anyone who likes Rayquaza is not allowed on the pod. The Pokemon's fine. Mega Ray's fine. Ray GX is fine. Ray VMAX? Oh, that card's not good. Roy John asks, how do you make cubes more time friendly? It usually takes too long and to play in one afternoon. I think it's a valid question. Because like it's a big time commitment to play it in then 3 or 4 rounds. You're talking 4 to 6 hours usually, depending on a variety of things.
I think the best time-saving device is going down to like 45 card decks rather than like 60 card decks. Something, and then playing like 4 to 5 prize cards. So the games are shorter. You're drafting physically less cards, and like your best of one. Or if rather than doing round robin, you just do a bracket, and then you're playing less games, and you're just like knocking people out. Those would be 2 of the best time-saving things. Outside of, you could then have a draft that is quite different, where maybe you have a really small drafting pool, and then you get given things outside of the cube itself. Like for drafting a stage 2, you then auto receive 2 stage 1s and 3 basics. So then you're only drafting like 100 cards. But then there's like a binder to the side where you then take those additional cards as you've drafted them. So you can shorten your... Basically, you just need to shorten your drafting pool and then make games faster.
My friends and I came up with 2 ways to shorten it. One, if you have experienced drafters with that cube, it goes much faster than like if someone's reading all the cards for the first time.
Sure.
That's like definitely one thing. But we're going to try something where we use the online drafting simulator, the Google Sheet, draft the day before, and then the next day when we like meet up and draft together, we like we already just like know what cards we're looking for, so we just look through the piles for what we've drafted and we build from there. We're gonna try and see how it goes, because our local shops that we use, like we'll do the draft Saturday night, we'll play Sundays, but they close at like 5 o'clock, and it's so annoying because we're all busy Saturdays, so we can only cube Sundays, but we only have 5 hours. Like we can only get one person's cube in, so maybe we can squeeze a way to get 2 cubes in a day, maybe.
Cool. I actually like both of those ideas. I didn't think of any of that. And it's like, oh wait, those sound really good. Because that's my biggest complaint. Like, usually I have to like do stuff, but I want to join it.
But since it's been online, I've done a ton of drafts just via Google Sheets, and then had it built on TCG One or whatever, and then played like a friend a night sort of thing, and then it's like a half-hour commitment each like round we do.
We did 1 Google Sheet draft. That was very fun.
I thought we did 2. No, you weren't there for the second one.
Yeah, I did. Correct. I did 1, and it was quite enjoyable. Except not, because the person who won had a real deck, and I did.
Yeah, okay. Wilmer kind of just like absolutely bodied us because we did a Zora cube, and Wilmer drafted, or Anya, sorry, Anya drafted literally all of this like Gardevoir line, and Gardevoir is stupid. So like Anya ran us over. Yeah, Anya ran us over.
Garbodor and Lucario and Golisopod all in the same deck. Delock asks, and I think he's asking for H2.
He is.
Joe, what has been your favorite moment streaming, and why is it the time you played PTCGO while on a stationary bike?
I mean, that was fun. Man, favorite time streaming. I don't know. There's some good clips if you go back to the channel. Different times we've had fun. I don't know. My most favorite like time to be playing Pokemon is normally like just before set releases, because we're doing all the experimenting and stuff like that. So my real answer would be just when we're doing like tabletop stuff or any pre-format like discussions or whatever. Those are my favorite times. But the bike is good.
Bob McDougall asks, what are the top 3 single prize decks you're looking forward to post-rotation?
Do any single prize decks exist in a world with Rapid Strike Urshifu and no Mew? Is my first question.
That's my thought. And Bob did put in there, I know Gmax Rapid Flow exists. But like, my favorite's whichever one is good.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. There's your answer.
I honestly can't think of 3. I think Malamar would probably be one of them.
Because Malamar, if you can set up 1, you can Oko the Urshi.
Right, but
Sure.
that's the question. Is like,
but then
your
you still
Rapid
lose
Strike
to Astro
Inkase. Yeah, your Rapid Strike Inkase have 50 HP.
Yeah,
and the dark one, I believe, rotates.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's Cosmic Eclipse or something. So like, you got a 50 HP Pokemon that dies to like one of the best decks in formats, basic, not even the evolution. It's like, how are we gonna get out of this one?
Sure, it's fine. Actually, it's
Yeah,
not.
I can't think of many other viable one prize decks. I mean, there aren't any in the format currently, right? Well,
What?
Decidueye, I guess, would be the right answer.
All right, you're off
But, like,
the pod.
Probably
Have you played
Okay.
Spiritomb?
Okay,
Yeah,
Mello, shut up.
Spiritomb's
Shut
fine.
up. Mello, shut up.
Spiritomb's fine.
Nobody
Spiritomb's a
likes
good
you, and
deck.
you're stupid. Mello's found a new deck to
So
sim
that
to for the
rotates anyway,
format.
right?
It does.
So we can't play Spiritomb.
For what it's worth, Azul on his latest power rankings put Spiritomb number 3.
I mean,
Ooh.
come on. He wants a click. The man wants a click.
Tomb is a
If you
tier
look
2
at the
deck.
results, come
That's because
on.
no one
You
plays
can't
it.
say
Look
that.
look at the conversion rate and the win percentage. Tomb is actually one of the top decks consistently.
Mello, stop
It
simming.
does have the win percentage is very high for Spiritomb.
Yeah.
That is true.
Although part of that is also the same 4 people play it. And so it's also kind of a well, these people are very good at the deck. But also Spiritomb. Spiritomb's good. But yeah, I think Decidueye is the only single prizer that probably survives. Like Melanie not going to base or non-V Pokemon is awful. There's no energy acceleration for them.
Who was like, yeah, let's. Oh no, I know why. This is a connection to Grant's rant. They don't care about the player. They're like, well, V Pokemon are big Pokemon, so we need to make cards that affect them. Melanie only works on V Pokemon. There is a reason they did that. They wanted it so you play the V Pokemon, and not the one prize Pokemon that are fun. Sorry, I had to make my father proud. I had to make my father proud.
Stellar Wish Gaming asks, or Stellar Wish Gaming says, "Hi, Joe," and then asks, "What is our favorite deck for post rotation?" So I assume, like, what are we most excited to exist? For me, Rapid Strike Box, even though I'm pretty sure it's just not going to be good enough. I'm excited to mess around with Urshifu, Blaziken, Zero Aura as a deck.
I think Ice Rider is the serious pick. And I still want to work in the best way to find a way to play Zacian. I know Kika did a list that's just like Inteleons without the ping guy. It's just pure shady dealings. Maybe there's still a defensive way to build like Zamazenta. That sounds boring, but it could be a deck. I basically still want to find a way to play a basic deck that isn't just an evolving VMAX.
Yeah.
Because I'm terrified of boss.
It feels like there has to be something too. Like Zacian as a card is just really
it's insane.
good.
It's
no
so
way that's
good.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, I mean, the print of Phoebe was just so detrimental to like pure metal decks. Like, you can't Zam VMAX decks anymore because they just play one Phoebe and they go right through you.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. I don't know. I don't think I have one. I mean, Ice Rider seems fun, but I'm just so terrified of like getting boss turn 2 and being like, well, there goes my attacker.
Yeah.
And then you're playing 2 prizes behind for the rest of the game, and then you lose. So
no comeback mechanics is so
really bad. No comeback, no bench protection,
Feels really bad.
And they've put so much into VMAXs now. It's just like they keep flooding the support to VMAX Pokemon. And it's like, all right, we got it. Stop, please.
I think the worst thing tag teams have done is force VMAXs to hit numbers that Oko evolving. Because if everything hit Mally VMAX and Coco numbers of 180, I think the format would be really strong. But because they have to hit 270, it's like, well,
like we have Eternatus. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So that's the worst thing about
Teeny.
The power creep was a little too much there.
I mean, look at right now. What is like an actual tag team that is the core of a deck besides ADP?
I think Picarom's underrated. I know you're gonna make that face, Eevee, but I think Picarom can still find a place.
But like actually in events right now, like even if Peak Rum's underrated, it's not seeing the play. So like it's really just ADP because ADP speeds the game up so much faster and it keeps up with VMAXs. The VMAXs have taken over, I think. I think like this is like Pokemon has put so many good VMAXs in the format with so much support. It's just like, all right, now these are becoming scary.
Yeah, but chat saying LMZ and Eggrow are also. Eggrow's another one with high conversion rate, low play rate.
Yeah, and Luke Metal, I don't think Luke Metal is like the core, but it's like it's more of a defensive deck in my mind. It's not like I'm gonna take 3 prizes off your Dedenne every turn with ADP. But yes, you are right. Like, and Genkyu's not the core of a deck. There's no deck that's playing 4 Gengar Mimikyu or 2 Gengar Mimikyus. Like they're playing maybe 1 in Shadow Rider. Same thing with like Trebnor. Like Green's Trebnor is not like a top 3 deck in any tournament right now.
There's too much Dark. Oh wait, no, Dark Weavile, Dark Mewtwo. That's another one. A really good deck with a really high win percentage. That is just underplayed.
Doesn't see the play.
People want to play Eternatus. I put out a tweet about this. No one. I was actually hoping someone would give me a reason why Eternatus is more played, a good reason, and no one's able to. I think Mewtwo Weavile is just a better Eternatus, except I guess against Mewtwo Weavile because it does lose to Eternatus. I will acknowledge that.
I guess maybe like people are just comfortable with the mechanics of Eternatus and like this new Mewtwo Weavile. It's not like that crazy of a deck to play.
Yeah,
like
it's not that hard.
At you. Like, it's really not that hard, but they just like going 2 energies Unga Bunga 270.
Probably. I think I'm going to purposefully say this name incorrectly. So Grifo asks, talking about cubes in alternate formats, do you think those types of formats could be implemented into PTCGO?
Yes, no. Pokemon just won't. Like, I mean, they're killing Legacy off, they're removing stuff from the stores. It's like, the game clearly isn't going to, the client's not seeing any growth in, like, most ways. There's almost no chance they ever put something like that in. Could it be put in? Yes, they have the ability to. Someone put it on a Google sheet. They can definitely put it into a game meant to play Pokemon cards. Will they, though? Only time will tell.
Yeah, I'm crying about it. There's so much PTCGO could be, but it's just not. I think possibly a opening pack drafting format could be a thing, like a pre-release style event could be in PTCGO. But again, I don't think they will implement any of it. There's so much scope for it to be the most amazing thing for everyone and actually bring people into the game, but they just don't.
For a long time, that's something that we had that Magic didn't. And then they got the Arena client, which is awesome.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually getting a massive update as well. They're moving away from Duel Links just recently. They announced it, right? And that looks incredible.
Well, I was going to bring that up. They're not moving away from Duel Links. They're just have a separate for the old school game. Yeah, it's like what we would want as like the RSPK era. They're just giving that for Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like,
come on.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, it's we're not going to rant about PTCGO again. We've done that a handful of times.
Oh, we've done that plenty of times.
And I assume that Joe's done that plenty of times on forever. You literally said your favorite part about streaming isn't playing PTCGO.
Yeah. They don't even have all the cards.
You have a caster's account. Why do you need the cards?
No. PTCGO doesn't have half of the generations of Pokemon in its own database. Come on.
Yeah, that's bad.
It does not. It goes back to HCSS, but they're not even like acknowledging its existence. There's packs in the store. That's it. No legacy tournaments, no legacy packs, no bundles, nothing. Like it's just, yeah.
It's unfortunate. I understand the Wizard of the Coast stuff probably never could come. Which honestly, I'm fine with. Shout out to anyone who plays Wizards of the Coast format, but God, I hate that format.
Base Neo is a fun format to play if you play with the right person. All right, I used to play that before League Cups, and it was really fun flipping 7 tails on beat up. Yeah, that format is fun if you play with the right people, and if you like enjoy old formats. It's like a whole different perspective because you're constantly thinking about coin flips, but that's a story for another time.
That's basically post rotation.
Yeah, it's basically post rotation.
Lit One asks, what do you think about Eternatus and Shadow Rider post-rotation?
think Eternatus is fine. It's relatively untouched in terms of what it can achieve. It loses Calm, but it feels fine. Yeah, Yveltal as a pivot is a bit of a pain. But you gain Umbreon, which seems good.
Really good. Being able to research and evolving V is...
That seems good. And its type coverage is still going to be relevant. I know Urshi is going to still be fighting on in there, and you have to worry about that. But yeah, it seems solid. Its game plan is the same. You don't... Like, loads of decks rotating lose loads of cards, but because, like, we were already limited to only dark Pokemon anyway, Eternatus feels the pain like way less than most of the decks. It's like exactly losing Calm. That's it. So yeah, it's gonna be fine.
Makes me think of what Mello said. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Like he said, no card like Eternatus. It's clearly supposed to be Eternatus. Like that's what the card was made to do, was fill your bench, kill stuff, right? Like I thought that was so funny because Eternatus is 100% just like, oh, is there a new dark Pokemon? Let's see it. All right, it hits the bench. Let's go. Like that's. Yeah, Eternatus seems fine. Shadow Rider seems insane. I mean, there's so much room for support to come out for it still. It's very strong. It's a draw engine and energy acceleration and the same card. Why did they do that? I don't know.
I think it feels a lot more fair in this format. I think it's a slow ramp deck now, and you can actually fall behind in prize races like quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you are getting gusted up. Like I've tried some Cresselias being like opening turn attackers, and that's just felt really bad.
Wait, like this format right now, it's slow, or looking?
No, post.
Oh, okay. I was like, man, have you been?
You don't have Horror House. yeah. I mean, exactly right. You don't have Horror House, so you don't have. I agree. Eat everything out of range of a KO. Post rotation, it feels much more fair. I don't know if like Shadow Rider may not even be the thing that you accelerate to now. Maybe you just play it as an accelerator. Yeah, like Cake, for example, or just other V Pokemon. Just go heavier like Necrozma V, maybe.
Do we lose Aurora energy or no?
No, that's Sword Shield base.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's back to Aurora Land. I don't know really.
The big fear for me though is like you fall behind on the prize race by 2 prizes because of boss, right? Then you're playing catch up, but like if you fell behind in older formats in the prize race by 1 prize, it's a less of a terrifying deal because you can come back from that. It is possible. Hand disruption, gust effects, stuff like that. It makes it a realistic chance. But like with Marnie as our hand disruption, I'm not loving the odds of going, all right, Marnie to 4. Hope you don't draw a supporter card. Just yeah.
It'll still be powerful, obviously. But it feels way less oppressive than it does now.
Especially with no stamp. Stamp is just like I wish we had something like it still.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. Because it's like you Marnie them into a drizzle. It's like, oh, cool. Although I'm a fan of the Inteleon line. I've been trying it off and on since forever, and it's just never been that good. But adding the Rapid Strike Sobble so you can search out, in addition to the Snipe for certain decks, and now VMAXs that are just so low maintenance, it's pretty solid.
That is true, yeah. The VMAXs are like very, like a lot of them are like 2-3 energies most. To like attack.
Yeah,
which is a big deal.
Which seems weird that it never worked with tag teams because they weren't low maintenance. But like you had to do a little bit more with tag teams. Like Pikarom obviously set up other Pokemon. Mewtwo, you had to discard stuff and you were just more aggressive. And Naganadel Guzzlord, the bad card that people keep trying to make work. So like, yeah, it never worked with any of those. CFS asks, what is your favorite stage 2 line for Cube?
Like, if it's a specific card?
I'm going to start with my not nuanced answer because I've already seen the question and thought about it. My favorite stage 2 line is the Machamp line because most of the Machops hit hard and most of the Machamps do cool stuff like hit hard or KO basics. So I like that one because it's very idiot proof.
I'd say, I mean, if I'm going like completely broken, Empoleon and Magnezone are probably there. Magnezone and Empoleon have a draw version of them. They have energy acceleration in the Magnezone. They have crazy damage output in Empoleon. But like, if we're being realistic, I'd say either Metagross or Porygon Z. I've had a lot of fun with those two cards in the past. Porygon Z has like a bunch of fun cards you can mess around with. Metagross, I like the slower, like high HP kind of deck. That's really fun to play. Probably one of those 4.
I think those are all great answers. I really like Crobat because there's so much versatility there. You get sniping pressure, you get like ping damage. There's even, thanks to the new ones, draw effects from them.
Yeah,
they
those
oftentimes
seem
have free
really cool.
retreat, so they can move in and out of each other and just manipulate damage quite a lot, and they deal with status. So there's a lot of like play with coming into your opponent's turn where you can set up KOs and stuff like that. So it's like an intricate line to play with, which I think is really fun.
One thing Locke pointed out that I forgot when I mentioned Machamp is the Guardian's Rising Machoke. Blocking all damage counters is also very, very good. There's always the one Joker who wants to play spread.
Well, you see, nobody's drafted Machamp yet in my cube, and I'm very disappointed because like
no one's drafted Machamp. He's a staple,
right?
He's so good.
I've got all the good ones. I got 2. I got the
support in there.
I have fighting support, all right. Oh yeah, I've got. I'd put it with Donphan. I was like, come on, this is like Donphan Machamp. This is like the classic duo. Nobody picked it.
That's insane.
I would have gone for it immediately. That's the one time it's like, I like fighting types. Buzzrock was my first deck, and I've just kind of gone like, it's punch in face. It works. Ultra Necrozma asks, should cups be best of 3 since games are only lasting about 10 or 15 minutes? And I think, Joe, is it best of 3 for you? I feel like everywhere except NA is best of 3.
I haven't had cups in a while, so I'm going to have to think back, but it was best of 3.
No. Our cups are best of 1 here.
Same here.
I mean,
I'm going to say no, just because, again, we've been doing tournaments every Friday. Check out twitch.tv/mellow_magikarp, 6 p.m. Pacific time Fridays. I'll be casting the Tabletop Village local tournament, but the best of 3 still take a while. We had almost every game in Top Cut the last couple weeks go to time.
Yeah, they do take a good amount of time.
Yeah, shuffling in between the games, like even if the individual game is relatively fast, it's still no. I'm going to say no, just because I ain't got that kind of time.
Do you prefer best of 1 in general?
No, I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
We have
as a player, I would much prefer spend more time to play best of 3.
What?
But that's just my.
This one is a lot more realistic for like if I don't want to spend 10 hours at a League Cup some days, and I know that might not be a problem to all people, but like I don't want to sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours, because eventually you're like, all right, let's get this over with.
Best of 3 would be nice. Shout out to my locals. I love all of you, but you keep losing to me. So until I need best of 1 to turn into best of 3, I'm perfectly fine with best of 1. Because we have plenty of cups. But yes, best of 3 is significantly better. If they are ever like regionals are going to be best of 1 now, I would riot with everyone else.
That was a thing.
It seems awful. I hate that idea.
Best of 1. Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah. No best of 1. Japan does it. I don't know how they do it especially with their lists. Some of those lists that were coming out of the Japan were just like, are you sure you really want a 3/3 Shadow Rider line in your deck? Like, I know you got top 16, but you could have won the whole thing.
I think he played 1/4 of in that list. It was research. I don't think he played 4 of anything else. I was like, is this a Yu-Gi-Oh deck? Like, what in the world?
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, and I will fully acknowledge most of them who have these wacky lists have accomplished more than I have accomplished. So maybe I need to try it, but like sometimes you look at a list and you're just like, how'd this work in best of 1? Like,
it's just a different culture. It's just a different culture in Japan, right? People literally just play to have fun and chill out with friends, and like I feel like the Western world is so much more competitive that we're actually trying to win the tournament. like almost half the people attending a tournament are actually trying to win it.
That is-
realistically,
Even the people who say
which
they
just
are.
isn't. Yeah, exactly right.
Especially
Oh,
if
yeah.
you say, I don't really care if I win.
Yeah, you do. You're gonna rage after I 2-0 you. Speed Resolve saying
Yeah.
Erica's Hospitality. Japan loves Erica's Hospitality, but so do I. I played it in my Players Cup 4 deck. 10 out of 10. That card got so much mileage. I love that stupid thing.
Shout out to when Boo put it in Relish. I
That's-
remember that.
I played it in
Fun.
Relish. It was very good. Just drawing like 6 cards with that deck was good. That's it for the questions. So Joe, shout outs. Where can the people find you if they want more of you, more cube, more poke, post rotation stuff, anything? The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me once again. Omnipoke is the YouTube, Team Omnipoke is the Twitch. If you guys want to get involved in Cube, I'm an admin on the Facebook group Legend Box, so I can literally add you if you just say hello. And that's the best place where there's loads of posts about Cube. There's also a Discord for Cube, which I can't remember the name of. I think there's also a podcast called P3 Podcast, which is all about Cube. So go ahead and check that. I'm not associated with it. It's just the best way to learn about Cube. And yeah, definitely give it a go. If you're still here and are not bored about us talking about Cube, definitely give it a go because it's just the best. So yeah.
Cool. Evie, where can the people find out more about you if they want to?
Yeah, if you want to, NK0HLI on Twitter is my Twitter handle. Any KDR event, all of our Carpe D's Rats events, come check them out. Come check out Mello's stream in chat. Just type in !KDR. Up pops the Discord link, and you can join our team Discord for events and all of that.
Wait, why didn't I know that it does that? It's my chat.
And then next Tuesday, all right, I'm saying this because I'm in charge and I decided to say it. Next week is the team's 1-year anniversary of being a team, which is kind of crazy that we've stayed alive this long and stayed together. It's also kind of a shock that Azul stayed with us for a full year. I was expecting him to say, yeah, I'm done about halfway through.
Right.
But next Tuesday's cast, you do not want to miss. It will be the first and probably only one we have with more than 3 people. It is going to be crazy. It's going to be awesome. 100% recommend being there for it. It's going to be a blast.
Cool. And as always, you can find me Twitch, Twitter, YouTube at mellow_Magikarp. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, comment, whatever it is you want to comment. I don't care. It helps the algorithm, so you should do it because we're trying to monetize that baby as soon as possible. And yeah, thank you all for listening. We will catch you all next week. It's been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast. See y'all next week.